Hey, welcome to the Athletics Office Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Weaver, with my co-host, Coach RC. And today, we want to talk about what do parents wish they could tell coaches. We've done a series now on what coaches wish they could tell parents. So let's take the opposite role and what parents wish they could tell coaches. What do they wish that they knew about how to coach their kid? And before we jump into our conversation, let me just remind everybody to like and subscribe, share this with friends. We're just trying to get the word out to make this a positive environment within athletics and help each role kind of understand how they can operate to make this a positive environment for these kids. So, as we jump in, let's start with one of the things I hear from parents, and of course, I'm a parent myself, you're a parent, is we like the coaches to value and appreciate our kid, no matter their performance. So kind of talk about that and what that looks like.
So value and appreciation in front of others and behind the scenes as a coach, like that is the most important thing in my eyes that, you can show a parent, right? Not just at the end of the season banquet, like, oh man, I'm talking about all my seniors and my juniors.
It's kind of expected then.
Yeah, that's expected. But like the value, like, and it's more with me in general in baseball, it's more behind the scenes of like, hey, I catch them when they're coming in the dugout. Great job. Way to work out of that jam. Parents don't see that when, especially in baseball, because you do have the dugout where you can go and hide in and do all these things. So it looks a little bit different in each sport as well. But like as a coach, like I want to show parents that I do think that their kid is valued, even if he is the 15th kid on the bench. Right?
Not based on performance.
Not based on performance at all. It's not based on performance. And I think as a parent, like that is a really clear expectation to have. And I think it's a very easy one for you to have for coaches of like, my daughter plays basketball. I have another daughter that plays soccer. My son plays golf. I just want to make sure that that coach who's interacting with them multiple times during the week is valuing them and like sees them for who they are, right? Each kid is different. We have kids at our school that are, they're really great athletes. Then we have some kids that, they can't chew gum and walk at the same time. But like that should not be on the spectrum as a coach of like, oh, I'm going to treat him, I'm going to appreciate him and show him and give him all the credit because he's really important. And like you mentioned something in our head coaches meeting yesterday or the other day of how it's almost more important to lean into that kid that's 12th, 13th, 14th guy on your team than the guy that's already putting up 20 points a game.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
So that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, so if you look at even our social media, you're going to see, all staters, you're going to see all conference awards, just the different kids that are getting awards. Like they're already getting the publicized. And yes, I want to feed into them. I want to say, man, you've worked extremely hard. You've put the time in and you're reaping those awards. But it's so much more important, I think it's a more difficult position to be in if, like, let's say you're a basketball player and you're not subbing in consistently.
Yeah.
We've had seniors on our team who work their tails off in practice. And, play in some games, but some games they don't. And it's important when I go in that locker room and let's say I have a guy who scored 25 points and another guy that grabbed 12 rebounds, like, I can spend a second saying, hey, great job scoring, great job rebounding, whatever. But man, why they're so prepared is because this young man in practice, even though he's not getting in the game, like he impacts the competitiveness of our team and raises our level because he works hard every day. And then our guys usually do a great job like clapping for him and they'll kind of nudge him and bump him and get excited for him. And I'm like, listen, this could not happen without your work. Now, parents don't always see that, but hopefully that the kids feel that. Yeah. And I will say younger in my coaching career, you tend to spend more time with those kids who are playing more, right? You're developing relationships. You're talking to them. Hey, in this situation, I want you to do this. Make sure you're doing, and you're maybe more focused on their development. Right. And you kind of start to separate yourself from those who are not playing as much. And that just kind of naturally happens. So it's important that you are intentional about reaching those kids. Like when we're stretching, I like to kind of walk through our stretching lines and everything. And I'm really trying to connect with those kids that maybe don't play a whole lot.
Right.
man, how's your day? What's going on today? You know, man, you did this the other day. I mean, just connect, because there were some times earlier in my career where, again, I would just naturally, I mean, a week would go by and I wouldn't have a personal conversation with them. And so I want them to know I care about them, and just building that relationship, and then just pointing them out. And then, you know, when I talk to their parents, just be like, man, he's doing a great job. You know, I know you don't see him on game nights and things like that, but man, incredible attitude. You know, we had a kid a couple of years ago when we won state who was a senior.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about? Yeah. The impact that he had on our culture, and they called it the bench mob.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like took us to a whole other level. Like, I mean, and did impact us on the court, even though he didn't play very much. And it's like, you know, they find their roles and they do this. But at the end of the day, it's important for us coaches to value and appreciate and show that in front of people and even behind the scenes. So even at the end of practice, hey, man, you know who had a really good practice today? You know, this kid. And he doesn't always get to play in games. Maybe he's working towards that. Maybe he does get that benefit at some point. Or maybe it's, man, you know, we've been struggling at taking charges. You know who took a charge today? You know, Johnny. And he didn't play very much. And, you know, those type of things. Like, it's important for coaches. You can do a whole lot of help for the kid, and then ultimately for your relationship with the kid, if you just value and appreciate them. So let's go to the next one. And this is not necessarily on the other side of that, but this is where a lot of difference in expectations come in, is being honest with the kid on where they stand and setting expectations, both at the beginning of the season and even throughout the season. So talk about what that's looked like in your coaching career.
Right. And I think even when we talk about expectations, it's expectations within our coaching staff with relationships as well, you know? So like being honest up front with a lot of our baseball players. This year is one of those years where we're going to have competitions at almost every position. In years prior, it's kind of been a little bit written on the wall, like, hey, this dude's going to be playing shortstop. He played shortstop last year. Like, he's a senior now. He's probably going to play it again. This year, like, positions are open, right? And I've been clear from the beginning that positions are open. Like, you have to come out here and work every single day.
You got to earn it.
And, you got to earn that position. And the expectation has been set. And I told our guys the other day, like, you guys are meeting the standard right now of the expectations that we've set forth as far as playing time, being prepared, working hard every single day. So setting those clear expectations up front, I think is vital. But also in our parent meeting, I set expectations, right? And I know we talked about parent meetings in a past episode, but in that parent meeting, the expectation is this: hey, I'm going to mess up, right? But one, I love your kid. Two, this is how things are going to go. And this is what I look at when I'm deciding on who's playing where and who's doing this and who's doing that, right? But then, like, don't be so, as a parent, like, I get in this sometimes with my little one. I'm like, man, she's really good. Like, why is she not playing a little bit more? And I'm like, wait a second. You know? But on the flip side of that, like, the expectations have to be clear. And I think it can get watered down, especially you talk about as the season goes on, as far as expectations go. But on the team level, as long as the expectations are clear throughout, right? And you don't waver back and forth. I see a lot of coaches that kind of hop back and forth on what they're doing. And I'm like, that's going to be a tricky spot to get out of later in the year.
Putting yourself in a tough spot.
Yeah, you're putting yourself in a tough spot. My head goes to parent meetings, like, right off the bat, I'm like, oh, man, I got to make sure, like, what are we doing, you know? So, like, and don't get me wrong, all parent meetings aren't bad parent meetings, you know? But when you get into those situations, most of the time it's because the expectation wasn't clear, right? If you set the expectation and the foundation early with the parent meeting, with your players, and there's always going to be 99% of the time, there's going to be a communication breakdown from coach to player, player to parent.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So as long as those expectations are clear and you're honest with the kid and they know that you're going to be honest with them, then I think that point of, like, hey, being clear, the relay message from me to the parent or me to the player to the parent is going to be fine. But I think also, and then you may be able to speak to this a little bit more, the expectation from the coach to be honest with the kid, it all starts with the relationship first. And it goes back to that value appreciation towards the kid. If the kid doesn't feel valued or appreciated, who knows what they're going to tell mom when they get home or dad when they get home, you know? So,
no, I mean, and let's be honest, there's some kids that, you know, you can value them, you can appreciate them, you can build relationships, but at the end of the day, if they ain't getting the playing time, they don't feel the love. And, and that's just the competitive side of it. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. That's just how some kids feel, you know. So just yesterday, our guys who played football showed up to practice, okay? So our football team had an incredible year, got to the semifinals, just incredible, great wins down the stretch. I'm so thankful for all those guys who played and really added to the football team. So now they join us, okay? So we've had some guys in the gym for 3 months, right, since August, and then some guys playing football. Well, okay, you know, how do you handle that as a coach? Is, you know, it's tricky. I mean, we have a game tonight. They had one practice yesterday, right? So if I got a really good player out there in football, do I start him? Do I not start him? Who do I play? Who do I not play? And so before we even started practice yesterday, I just said, listen, you know, first of all, football, incredible year, man. I'm so proud of you guys did this. We took a second to kind of validate that. And then I said, okay, when it comes to this, guys, there is no playbook and right way to be able to handle this as a coach, okay? And here's how I'm going to do it. Seniors and juniors, you're going to suit varsity tomorrow, which is today, and sophomores not. Well, I got 3 sophomores who've been in the gym since August. But I'm starting with seniors and juniors. And I told them, now, this, you know, you could lose a varsity spot. Sophomores could step up. You know, I mean, it's, you know, that's just the way that I decided to do it now. Now, are all of them on board with that? Probably not. But again, it goes back to the roles. There's players, there's parents, there's coaches, and this is a coaching decision. And then I said, look, for tomorrow, the guys who have been here are going to start, okay? And then, you know, I'm working to get those guys in, all right? And then I'll kind of pepper in the football players, you know, when the time, if the opportunity presents itself and those type of things. But again, that's a coaching decision. It just kind of depends on how the game goes. Then we've got one more practice, and then we go to a tournament on Thursday, Friday, Saturday this week. And it's like, look, we've got 2 weeks of games before Christmas break, and I'm going to try to manage this, all right? But one thing I want to be clear on is your job is just to be ready when your name is called.
Right.
And I'm going to try to manage it as best I can, because some of them are just not in shape yet. It's, you know, they don't know exactly what we're doing all the time and those type of things. Now, that's in our specific situation. But in general, I think one of the things that's most hurtful to kids is if a coach says, and I was a part of a staff where we did this before, where we were like, hey, be ready. We're going to put you in. Your time's coming.
Yeah.
And then we wouldn't. You're setting a dangerous expectation for that kid, and now he has this hope, which I'm not saying hope is bad, but if you don't follow through with it, now the kid takes it as like, can I trust my coaches?
Right.
What they're telling me, is it actually what's going to happen? And I would just say, coaches, don't put yourself in that position. You know, hey, practice hard, be ready. If your name is called, be ready, right? I mean, that's kind of as far as you need to take it. And then if you decide to put that kid in, great. And if not, then it doesn't hurt the trust factor, which is one of the most important things when you're coaching a kid. But be honest, you know, so obviously we invite kids to ask us, hey, coach, what else do you need to see from me?
Yeah.
And particularly at the high school level, that's the best way to go about it. You don't want to be contacted by a parent to be like, hey, what does my kid need to do to add more playing time? Now, again, at OCS, we're not going to talk about playing time, but we can talk about what I'm seeing. Like, it's important that the kids see themselves through our eyes.
Yeah.
Like, I've been coaching 20 years. You've been coaching a lot of years. We're going to see things differently than a 15-year-old, than a 16-year-old, 17-year-old. So it's important that, you know, we give them feedback. You know, hey, right now, you're doing a really good job shooting the ball, but you're not taking really good care of the basketball. That's something that I need to see from you to improve in order for you to get the opportunities that you want to get. Yeah. I think that's good for players. And again, earlier in my career, I shied away from those conversations, but that's something, the more comfortable you get, you need to step into as a coach, okay? But then you need to back that up. If they actually show it, there needs to be an opportunity that's given to them there. You know, the other thing is, you know, there's this team dynamic, which we talked about in a previous podcast. At the end of the day, most guys on the team know who should be playing, who shouldn't, who should be starting, who shouldn't. It's, you know, we
self-evaluators.
Yeah, it's a good, you know, it's a coach's decision. But at the end of the day, very few times are kids shocked by, he's playing that kid, not this kid, those type of things. But set clear expectations and be honest with them. If you give a kid this thought that, hey, you're going to get this, and then they don't, it's very difficult to develop that trust that it takes and to really have this great team chemistry that you need. One of the things that we pride ourselves in our program, Trevor Davis, an assistant, Alfred Jackson, Jared Merrill, is trying to be transparent as much as we can with the kids. We're not going to have these conversations with parents, but as much as we can with the kids, try to be transparent and let them know where they stand at that moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump to, this is such a big one. Understand how to support and challenge each kid because they each take it differently. And so talk about that and what that's looked like over your time.
So every kid is different, right? So every kid's going to need support in different ways. All right. And from teaching background, you have kids that struggle learning. You have kids that really excel at learning. So how do you manage that in a classroom setting when you have two different spectrums, right? Similar on the field or on the court, like you have one kid that has played a lot of baseball. Then you have a certain kid that has not played a certain amount of baseball or a higher level of baseball. So you have to figure out how to understand and kind of where they are to begin with, kind of like where their base is, and then work from there, right? So one example is we're going through outfield drills the other day, and I'm sitting here and I'm just lobbing pop flies to guys. And I'm like, hey, you got to get your body turned around. We want to have a bent elbow. We want to catch it close to our eye, right? Things like that. And I said, as we catch the fly ball, your body is going to be turned towards me. I demoed it, right? So they should see that and be like, I'm like, all right, they got this concept, right? And so we have left-handed outfielders. What did they do? They mirrored me. So like they turn their body the same way that I turned mine, and they catch the ball like with their glove hand, their right hand like this. And I'm like, what are you guys doing?
That sounds like a coaching issue to me. Is what that sounds like.
And I'm like,
you should have mirrored it for the other kids.
I should have thought about it from the other kids' perspective, right? So I'm sitting there. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, Coach, that's how you caught it. And I was like, you're left-handed, dude. Like, catch it the other way. And then for me, like you said, coaching moment, I had to go back through it and kind of revamp how I taught that, right?
Yeah.
So like understanding that each kid, like some kids are very literal, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they don't understand the maybe the little one-liner joke right here or there. They're just like, what?
Yeah.
They're very cut and dry. So I think when we're going into like understanding how each kid is supported, it all starts with the relationship. I know I've said it already once, but if you don't have a relationship with the kid, you're never going to know how to understand how to support them or challenge them, right? So speaking to a challenge, I challenge our guys every day in the weight room.
Yeah.
Like they come in there and it's like, if they walk in just slumped, I'm like, nope, go out, start over. Like it's walk in with some kind of energy about you, right? Like, I understand weightlifting's not fun. I'm skinny, right? Like, so I don't lift a ton, okay? I'm just going to throw that out there. Judge me if you want, whatever.
As I say, not as I do, right?
I don't work out a ton, but they understand my expectation of like, hey, when we get in the weight room, like, I'm going to challenge you. It's going to be a hard weight room session, right? And I think they've risen to the challenge with that. And then on the flip side, I love hitting. I like to teach hitting. So, and I used this example yesterday in our practice, in our classroom time. We have a kid that he's struggling. We have these things called Marv balls, and they're like squishy balls, and they come out of the machine and they spin really, really fast. So it's hard to hit, simulates like a lot of run on a fastball. So we have a kid that's struggling hitting it, right? As soon as he gets to the point where he's starting to make contact with it, I take the machine off the legs and I put it on the ground, and now it's a different angle coming at him. And he's like, Coach, what are we doing? And I'm like, it's a challenge, dude. Like, you figured out the other phase, right? That was the easier phase.
Yeah.
Now let's challenge a little bit more and figure out how to do it that way, right? So like each challenge, and I told our guys from the failure part of it, like that's where you grow, right? When I'm failing and I'm having to push through something hard, that's when I start to grow. So as long as the kid knows you have a relationship with them and they know that you're going to support them and challenge them, and it's only going to help them grow and raise their level of whether that's being a man, being a dad, being a father, being a really good baseball player, like, I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'm going to come at it from a little bit of a different angle. I want to start kind of with our own kids, right? Each one of our kids are different. And, you know, you talk about being literal. I've got one of my kids that is very literal, and I'm very sarcastic. So it creates a difference. I think God put him in my life so that, you know, to teach me when you say things, you need to mean what you say and not be, you know, so sarcastic with it. And so, you know, think about, you know, for the parents who have multiple kids, each of those kids are different, right? And if you're anything like me and my wife, sometimes you're sitting there talking and you're like, how are we going to get through to this kid? It's so much easier with this kid, but this one's a little bit more difficult. And as coaches, that's what we have to think about because, okay, we have 33-ish players in our high school basketball program. We have 100 total in our middle school and high school basketball program. Okay, each one of those kids are different. Each one of those kids have to be communicated a different way. And there's both sides, right? So as a coach, when I say something to a group, I'm saying it to the whole group, and it can be taken in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And as much as possible, I need to take that into consideration. Okay, hey guys, we do this, we don't do this, you know, and you have to be pretty straightforward. But when I'm having individual conversations, what does that look like for me to challenge? And so I'm going to talk about it from kind of a verbal standpoint. If a guy's messing up and making mistakes, I'm thinking about one kid on my team right now. I could get onto him as much as I wanted to. I could just, you know, get all over him, and it's not going to impact him at all.
Yeah. He's
going to be able to bounce back. Yes, sir. He's been coached hard all of his life. He's gone through a lot of, you know, tough coaching and everything. And he responds so well, very mature about the way he's coached, and like he will bounce back quickly. He'll take what you're saying and put it into practice.
Yeah.
I've got other kids that if I coach them hard, if I challenge them and I'm like, come on, you got to stop turning the basketball over. What are you doing? You know, that kind of stuff. Yeah, they'll go into their shell. They lose confidence quickly. It will take them a while to bounce back. And we were just having this conversation with our middle school kids the other day is if you make a mistake and you're hard on yourself and your shoulders shrink and your head goes down, all that stuff, as a coach, I think I need to take you out to get you kind of mentally back into the game. And that's ultimately going to hurt what you want. You want to play, you want to impact your team, and yet it's going to take you out. So so if parents are up in the stands and like, man, why is coach really getting on this kid? And this kid, he doesn't seem to really get on so much. Hopefully that coach has learned how to communicate in such a way that's best for each kid. And it takes time. So if you're early in your season or if you're early in your relationship with the coach, or that coach is young, like, you know, like I was at one point, you're just going to coach the same way. And again, full transparency. When we were playing, there was one type of communication. Like, I don't remember my coach changing things up depending on who he was talking to. Like, you were going to know.
Yes. Yes.
But, you know, that's something that we have to take into consideration. And it's something that I want coaches of my kids to take into consideration.
Right.
Hey, be very literal with this kid. You know, this kid will melt if you get all over them. Because they do whenever I discipline them. Yeah. If I get all over them, they will melt and you'll lose them for an extended period of time. Now, the other side of that is they do need to learn, like, what does it take to be able to bounce back from tough criticism, right? Because we're all going to go through tough criticism in our life. Now, I mean, if they're 10 years old, like our daughters are right now, it looks a little bit different. But we have to adjust that for our kids to be able to. And then same thing on the support. Some kids, they don't like to be pointed out in front of a group. You know, they makes them super uncomfortable. And so going to them individually and saying that means much more. You know, some kids love it if you go tell their parents what a great job they're doing. Some kids don't. Some kids, you know. And so just the way that you support them and all those things, it's different with each kid. And that's something that we're just constantly learning as coaches. I mean, some of these kids I've coached for years, and I'm still learning about that. And they also develop, right, as kids. And so, and they look at it different.
Well, and I want to go back to something real quick. So younger coaches, all right, if you're listening and you're a younger coach, there's a difference between a face-to-face conversation and a shoulder-to-shoulder conversation, right? Some kids only work with that shoulder-to-shoulder conversation. Some kids can't handle the face-to-face conversation. So the way that you position yourself in the conversation means a lot too.
Yeah.
And then you also your tone, just like you're saying, like I can get all over a kid and he's going to respond, right? I can get all over a different kid and he's going to fold, right? So I think when you're a younger coach, the quicker you can pick up on those things of like face-to-face conversation, shoulder-to-shoulder, tone, all those things, it'll help you in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go to the next one. So, I think what I've also heard from parents is, man, I hope coaches protect my kid. Right. And that can take on a lot of different forms. So just talk about, experiences that you've had with, times where you or your coaching staff or either other coaches that you've known have to step in and kind of protect their kid. Like, what does that look like?
So in baseball, you got your umpires, right? And my players know that I'm gonna fight for them, right? So there's a couple different instances when I was coaching at a different school. We're playing in a tournament, and shortstop from another team is chirping at one of my players, and I can tell it's starting to get a little hot.
Yeah,
and I'm like sitting there, and I tell my player like, "Hey, be quiet. You don't need to talk to him. Like, we don't talk to the other team anyways." So I'm like, we get the third out, we walk across the field. I'm telling the umpire, I'm like, hey, listen, it's starting to get a little heated. Like there's a little chirping going on from both sides. I said, I'll handle mine, but they need to handle theirs too. Right. So I tell the kid as we walk back in the dugout, I'm like, hey, listen, don't say one word to him. Don't say anything else. So he gets on base again. He gets to second base and they start talking. I can see their mouths moving. He's not even looking at the guy and I can see his mouth moving.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, stop.
Yeah.
And somebody calls timeout and I tell the kid to come over to me. And I'm like, what are we doing right now? Stop talking to him. He's like, Coach, he keeps talking to me. Like I'm literally trying to ignore him, but he just keeps talking to me. He's talking about my mom. He's doing this and doing that. So I go up to the umpire. I'm like, listen, I already told you once. Like, this is what's happening. If you don't handle it, I will walk over to the other dugout and talk to their coach and tell them what's going on. Yeah. So, like, I'm trying to be a mediator. Yeah. Again, I'm at a different school at this point in time, so it's a little different. Yeah. So I'm trying to, like, lower the tension. So doesn't end up happening, but my player ends up listening to me and he stops talking, right? So then we have another instance where there's a game going on. We're playing a team and like this game is to host a regional. And our fans get a little rowdy. I got middle school baseball players. They like to chirp every now and again, right? So they're chirping, going at it. And the other coach doesn't have an issue with it until we take the lead. Then once we take the lead, he decides to walk over and he's like, hey, what? Your guys are over there chirping at us and they're doing this and doing that. So me, I'm not yelling at them. I'm not emotional at it by any means. I'm just like, hey, listen, they've been over there the whole game and this is the first time I've heard about it. It's the 6th inning. Like we only play 7 in high school and it's the 6th inning. And now you're coming to tell me about it. And I was like, at this point in time, I'm not going to walk over there and be like, hey, guys, get down, stop chirping.
Yeah.
Like,
I think I did.
You did. You did. And I was like, I'm not going to walk over there. But the thing continued to go on. And once we clarified, like it took after the game to figure it out. But once we clarified everything, it all started before it even before the game even started, with his players saying something about my managers and things like that. And I don't do too well with that. Right. So like for me, I'm always going to protect my kid, my athlete, my own kid, as if like it's the end of the world somewhat. Like I think of my baseball players as one of my own kids in general. Right. And I tell them that. That's why I try to constantly have them around my kids and my wife and things like that. So one, they get to see me interact with my kids and see how I am with them. Like, because them little jokers. I ain't letting nothing slide, right?
Yeah.
But I want them to see that, right?
Yeah.
And I want them to see that I am a father and I do have that protective instinct, and I want them to realize, like, he's gonna protect me if I get in a situation like that, right? And sometimes I get myself in trouble and I'm like, golly, this dude, why did he do something stupid? But I got to go out there and be like, no, he didn't mean it. Like, he didn't mean it. Like, what are we doing? You know? And I'm going to try to protect my kid. And sometimes parents don't see that. Like, they'll see me try to protect my kid when I run out of the dugout and I'm having a conversation with the umpire. But a lot of the times they don't see me, like, have the umpire off to the side and then we're just having a conversation before an inning starts. But it's about that kid that just did whatever they just did the inning before, you know?
Yeah, the interactions with officials and umpires is tricky, right? We've talked about it on a previous podcast. And so, you know, because you do want to fight for your kids, but you don't want to be up there just complaining and whining the whole time. You know, it's such a difficult thing. So, you know, what that's looked like in basketball, because I've had parents say before, like, man, I want you, your kids want to feel like you're protecting them, right? If they're getting fouled and you're not up and fighting for them, and this is just the way we handle it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Like, we have the worst officiating in our practices because us coaches officiate, right?
Yeah.
And like, we'll let fouls go in practice, and you know, I give them a different, you know, situations where it's like, look, I'm trying to coach and trying to officiate at the same time, so sometimes I'm going to miss things, but also, I want you to be prepared when it gets physical in the game, that you're not sitting there whining because I'm calling every little foul in practice. And so, like, in a game, I think there are those times where you need to step up and say something to an official or an umpire because things are getting out of hand and unsafe.
Right.
But I'm not going to be one of those coaches that every 5 seconds I'm up complaining about things and those types. So, you know, and I really, when I need to talk to an official, I'll take a timeout, and then after they report the timeout, I'll call them over to our huddle. And I've even told officials, like, look, like, we don't know what a foul is on each side of the court. It's being called, you know, sometimes it's ticky-tack. Sometimes there's very physical plays being made, and we just don't know. So, you know, from my standpoint, just let's be consistent and all that. And I don't need to get irate about it and go crazy and stuff like that. And even in between innings, you're having conversations with the umpires, like, we don't know what a strike is.
Right. Where are we missing?
Yeah, it's all over the place, you know, that type of feedback. So that's one way to protect your kids. You know, I think another one is kids are, you know, they want to be out there, they want to be playing, and if they're going through an injury, they want to release themselves. Right? Say, hey, it's game day, coach, I'm ready. Now, we have a whole protocol at OCS where it has to go through our trainer. You know, if a kid turned an ankle one day and he's back the next, that's not as big a deal, but a kid had some type of injury or some type of surgery, we need a doctor's note. It has to go through our trainer and things like that. But sometimes we have to protect the kids from themselves. Right. You know, if we see a kid that, you know, if our trainer's not there and he's got symptoms of concussion, then he's sitting down, like, he's not playing anymore. And even if that means we lose the game, you know, parents need to see that, you know, that we're protecting their kids from, you know, those situations where they can cause further damage, further injury, and things like that. And then, you know, if there's, you know, luckily this hadn't happened very much in our program, but if a kid is, you know, getting bullied or getting treated in a way that's negative by teammates, right? Can a coach step into that and not just say, oh, you know, it's not happening or something, but to say, hey, we are not doing that here. Like, you know, one thing that we've really instituted in our program, I think a lot of our programs at OCS have, is just this servant mentality, right? Jesus came to serve, not to be served. And so, like, our seniors clean the bus when we get back from away games. Juniors carry the bags in. Freshmen, sophomores just go into the locker room. And so it flips that whole leadership model, because if you set your program up as, well, the freshman, sophomore are just kind of the grunt workers and they're going to do everything, you're setting a bad precedent that I think could be carried on. I think seniors and juniors could start to kind of hold that over their heads, and that's not leadership. That's not servant. And so, you know, whenever those things are happening, like, are we willing to stand up and protect our kids? Are we willing to have tough conversations with the leaders on the team to say, look, the environment that's in our locker room right now and, you know, on the bus or in practice is you guys talk down to them and you guys are treating them this way, and that's not the type of program we're going to be. And of course, we point to, you know, biblical principles and what's shared in God's word. And so, you know, I think that's an important thing, you know, because at the end of the day, you want each kid to participate, not necessarily play, but participate in sports and have a good experience. Now, as part of that experience will be some adversity,
Right.
maybe some success, but we want it to be a good experience in just the way that they work together and the relationships that are built there. So speaking of adversity and success, let's go to the next one. So as a parent, I want coaches to teach my kid how to handle adversity and success. And again, that's the best part about athletics.
Yeah.
Right now, I wish my kid got upset in their classroom for making an 89, and not a, or whatever that looks like academically.
Yeah.
But athletics is where you see this roller coaster of emotions from
Right.
super high when things are good to super low when things are bad. And so, talk about what that's look like and how you try to do that as a coach and what you expect as a parent from coaches who are handling this, how to handle adversity and success.
Well, from the parent perspective, like my kids play sports. I don't want my kids out there losing or they've lost a game and they throw a tantrum afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe we lost.
Yeah.
Like, it's sports. You're going to lose. You're not going to go 165-0 in your lifetime.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Right. So I want them to show them how to lose. Like, hey, we lost. It's okay. Like, we need to be better at this. We didn't quite do this well. So next practice, when we have practice, we want to work on these things to be better. So we try not to put ourselves in that position again, right? To learn how to lose, right? And also, when you lose, you still have to shake the other team's hand,
Yeah.
right? It's not the 2020s, right? The COVID era where we're like, after
Yeah.
games, we're like, hey,
Yeah.
good job, good game.
Such a weird time,
It's
yeah.
a weird time, right? But that's not it anymore,
Yeah.
right? We're back to shaking hands after games and things like that.
Yeah.
So learning how to take a L and then still being that that person that we want them to be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then I look at our football, right? We just finished our football season. We lost in the semis, but like after that game, like really powerful. They meet on the 50-yard line with the team who they just played,
Yeah.
and they pray,
Yeah.
right?
Powerful.
It's
Yeah.
powerful. So
Yeah.
like I think about things like that in the back of my head when I am getting on a kid and I'm like, oh man, at the end of this, I'm gonna have to I'll have to wrap this all up and bring it back together,
Yeah.
right? So like maybe don't go so hard on it.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, as a coach, I want to teach your kid how to fail,
Yeah.
right? I want to teach them how to fail. How do you respond? And you talked about the roller coaster.
Yeah.
We talked about that the other day in practice of like, hey, man, we're really high at this point. Like you may be 16 for 16 and you're seeing a beach ball up there right now and you're just like, I'm never going to get out again.
Right.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Right? It's coming. And you're going to go in that slump where you're 0 for 18.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how do you handle going from way up here to here?
Mm-hmm.
As a high school kid and even as an adult, like you cannot do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't live your life going way up, way down, super high, super lows. Like that's not a good recipe, right?
Yeah.
So we talk about staying even kill, right? 7-inning game, we're going to stay even kill. We have to find that, and that's what we use scrimmages for. Like we'll scrimmage and they're like super rah the first 3 innings, and it gets to the 4th and they're like, it's silent. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, where's our energy at? You know? And we talk about that at the end of every scrimmage. We're like, hey, round inning 4 or 5, we started tapering off with our energy level. So what does that mean? They're like, we probably started way too high.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, yes. So now the next scrimmage we come out and we try to find that meter where we can stay in the middle and not let the ebbs and flows of the game, because there's already going to be highs and lows in the game. Like I'm thinking about, we may score, here's a story, scored 3 runs in the first inning of a regional tournament. We're really like team's really high.
Right.
The bottom of the first inning, we give up 8 runs and now we're down 8-3.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
you know? Also, the team was like, what just happened? You know, so like the ebbs and flow of the game are already going to be there. How do you navigate that mentally? And as a coach, I want to teach them how to do that. Simulate it in practice.
Yeah.
One team's up by a lot, one team's got to come back, or one team's up by 1 run, you got to come back. And I'm a sucker for being like, oh, no, safe. He's out by a mile in a scrimmage. I'm like, nope, he's safe. Yeah. How are you going to respond?
Yeah.
You know? Or, oh, man, you guys just threw it into the dugout. He gets second and third. Yeah. And they're like, Coach, you're making stuff up out here. And I'm like, I am. Yeah. I am. I really am. So, like, how do they learn how to fail, right? Yeah. How do they learn not how to grab? We have a rule at baseball, and it's like anytime a coach is umpiring a game, you say anything, you're done. Like, it's like, all right, you go have a seat. Yeah. So, like, it cuts down the arguing part of in games. And, like, we already tell our players they're not allowed to talk to officials and things like that. Let us handle that part.
Yeah.
But, like, teaching them how to handle that, I think it's in that practice setting. And, like, for me as a parent, I want my kid to be challenged in that practice setting. And then in games, learning how to lose gracefully from what people say. Like, and my players, I hate losing. Hate it.
Yeah.
But, you know, we work on that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like this famous kind of video segment from the Jocko podcast, Jocko Willenick, and he says, you know, I'm going to paraphrase this in matter of sports, right? You didn't win the game, good. You can refocus on what it takes to get back to winning. You know, you didn't hit the ball, good. You know, now we can you know, get feedback on what we need to do better, right? You didn't rebound, good. You can learn from it to, man, next time I'm gonna go block out my guy. Like, to look at failures as an opportunity to learn and to get better and to improve. And that's what the adversity and coaching through adversity is all about.
Yeah.
You know, we all want success for our kids. We love to see them with the medals and the trophies and all those things, but it's so fleeting. Like, it goes by. And, you know, you brought up the football thing. Like, there hasn't been many other moments in my time at OCS that I've been more proud.
Yeah.
You know, they just had this hard-fought game. Obviously, it's heartbreaking to lose.
Right.
You know, really thought we had an opportunity to even go to the championship, win the championship, and had a great senior class. And immediately afterwards, to shake all those guys' hand, there were like 70 guys on each sideline, and then to come together to pray. It's like, that's what we're about. That's our mission at OCS, is to teach these kids how to glorify God with the gifts and abilities that they've been given. And what a testament.
Right.
You know, and it's like, when that moment comes, well, we handle it the right way.
Yep.
And actually, it was one of our kids. So we were all sitting in that circle, and they were like, okay, who's praying? Who's praying? Everybody was looking around. And one of our kids, they called the Rev.
Yeah.
They're like, come out here and do the prayer. And he nailed it, man. He did so awesome. And it was such a moment of, you know, sharing what we're really about at OCS. You know, yeah, we love banners and championships and things like that. But more than that, we love, you know, sharing Christ with others. And Washington is not just a great football team, but from everything I've heard, has a, you know, kind of a Christian foundation and do things in that way. So, but getting back to handling adversity and success, you know, and I think success is just as hard, if not harder, to handle. Of like, I'll get on our guys if they say, oh, we're playing so-and-so, and like, we're just going to kill them. You know, they're not very good.
Yeah.
And we remind them, like, the competition's not across from you, it's within you. You know, like, and you know, you take that to your work and your job. There are going to be some easy days and there will be some tough days. But if you always plan for the tough days and prepare for that, then you're prepared for anything. Yeah. And you can bring a level of consistency to your work, and in this case, to your sport. You know, are you only gonna, if you just try to get up for the big games and then you say, oh, this game's not as good, and so I don't have to give as much effort, you are stealing this opportunity from yourself. One, to enjoy that moment of that game, but then two, to bring out your best, and that's what we want to be able to do, and then to have it at a consistent level. And man, that's the hardest thing to get, is consistency, right? I mean, that's in all of our lives. You know, I can follow my diet one day and not the next. I can follow my workout regimen, not the next. I can do a great job because I'm really pumped up one day and then not have as much energy the next, and all that. And we're learning that in sports right now with these high school kids. And so, you know, it's important that we're sharing these messages of how to handle adversity and success. And like, I've seen coaches lose their minds after losing. Right, like, and let's say it was because of officiating. Let's say that officiating was terrible. It's like, you have this opportunity to talk to kids about sometimes unfair things happen, but you can't control that. You can control how you respond to it.
Right.
But I've seen coaches follow officials off the court, you know, do all this crazy stuff, and it's like, you missed this opportunity to teach such a valuable thing to this kid because you're worried about an outcome. You're worried about that performance. And it's like, you know, and they're like, well, I'm doing it for the kids. You know, that was just unfair. Okay, but the kids just saw that that's how you handle unfairness.
Yep.
Not how you know, hey, sometimes life's going to be unfair. Right. And you handle it with class, and then that fuels you to do even better the next time. And that's like, I tell our kids, like with, you know, going back to officiating, if they're calling it tight, then you need to adjust the officiating. If they're calling it physical, then adjust the officiating and play physical. And you need to be able to do both. And we can't control the officials at the end of the day, but we can adjust to it and play. Right. And we're not going to be that program that just complains all the time about officiating. So, okay, so let's kind of go lightning around these last few. So communicate effectively. Like that's one of the biggest gripes of parents, you know, and man, I've done a bad job in some regards in this, and I'll just throw myself under the bus here. You know, parents just need to be in the know, right? And particularly if you're coming out of elementary and going into middle school parents need to know what's going on. It's their first time maybe in an athletic realm. On the high school level, I try to communicate more through my athletes. We have an app that we put information on, but I try to communicate through my athletes, and I share with my athletes, my expectation is that you're sharing with the parents.
Right.
Can't do that in middle school. Have to put the information out there. And again, we played a team right down the road in middle school, and it was at their place. Their gym is not on campus. I should have sent an address. I should have. Now on the girls' side, they did, and the boys' side, we didn't. And it's just like, shoot, I've been here so long now, and I'm still missing these things. And it's like, you know, to let a parent know, here's what the week looked like, or hey, here's a change. Right. We've adjusted this to this. You know, maybe you share the why, or maybe you just put the information out there. But timely information, important information, that's a huge barrier for parents when we don't do it well as coaches.
And I don't think it has to be like this long drawn out email or message like, hey, game change, boom, put it on there. You know. That's something that I don't do very good at either, but I have a team parent who's awesome. Yeah. And
sometimes you have to delegate.
So like I delegate that to her, and she gets all the information out. Sometimes she's like, Coach, am I bothering you? And I'm like, no, you're helping me tremendously. Like, you know, so like communicating effectively. And I 100% agree with you. In middle school, it is like I communicate over the top.
You got to over communicate
in middle school. Because my middle school coaches are still working on that. They're still working on the communication there. But like I feel like in middle school, the more we communicate, the less questions you have on the back end as far as like, oh, when does practice end? When does this end? Like when are we going to this game? Like how does this tournament work? Like just early, right?
Well, let me talk about that, okay? In middle school, okay, you take middle school sports across the nation. Most times, the coach that is coaching there in that middle school is a young coach and probably doesn't have kids that are 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. So they haven't gone, like before I had kids, I didn't know how to communicate to parents as if I was a parent. I may have had a 2-year-old, may have had a 4-year-old, but it's different, right? Or you've got guys who are retired or closer to retirement, things like that, and they may be grandparents by now, right? And so, you know, I think as parents, we need to have kind of some grace with, okay, maybe they're not seeing it from a parent standpoint, and even to reach out. I mean, like, hey, do you need some help with that? Hey, I can, you know, something to think about. I've tried to do that for my coaches and not very well, but that's just the landscape of middle school athletics. Okay. I mean, you're not going to have RC a lot of times coaching middle school baseball. You know, you can go to practice, you can go to games, but that's not going to be what you're doing. And so that's just the landscape. I just wanted to share that. So, one thing to kind of throw in with value and appreciate my kid is spending time on and off the field and court with them. I think it's important as much as we can as coaches to spend time with them, you know, to get to know them. The famous story that I have is I had a kid who absolutely loved roller coasters, went through my entire program, middle school, high school. I didn't really connect that until he was a senior. And I sit there and I'm like, how has he been in our program for 6 years? And I didn't know that was something that was important to him. Like that, you know, kind of shame on me. And so that really challenged me to like, okay, what else am I missing with other kids that are coming up? And, you know, what does inspire them? What do they spend time on and things like that? And so I think, you know, spending time with them on and off the field and court is important. We don't want to just make it about our sport. And then it is important for coaches to take into account family vacations and events. Okay. Now, I'll be just honest. For the most part, I'm kind of a pushover on this. I'll have a kid come to me and be like, I got to leave practice an hour early because family's coming into town and we're going to dinner with them tonight. Like, I would never have told my coach that. I know plenty of coaches who are like, are you kidding me? Heck no. Or you got extra run or something. I'm just not going to fight that battle.
Right.
Obviously I tell them, hey, practice is important. We need to be here. But look, you got this family member coming to town and they come once per year, and go enjoy yourself. I'm not going to make them feel bad about that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it depends on, if it's the day before a playoff game, maybe it's a little bit tougher, things like that. But then some parents, coaches make the families feel like you have to do everything for this sport. You've got to be 100% in. You can't take family vacations. You can't do this. And like I tell our kids in the summer, like, look, we're going to go to a team camp on these dates, these 3 dates. But if you've always gone to grandma's house, then go to grandma's house, man.
Yeah.
One day your grandma's going to be gone and we're going to miss out on that time with them. You're not a professional athlete, right? Or if you've always gone to church camp that week, go to church camp. Miss team camp, whatever. Like, it's in the summertime. We're so far away from our season. You've got plenty of time. And, now if I had half my team missing, it would make it difficult and things like that. But I want to be very understanding. And I think us as coaches have to do a better job of, hey, your family time is important. And I'm going to respect that. Now, here's the time I'm asking for. All right. And I want to try to give you your family time. But, it's important that families feel like, hey, we can be a family. We can meet for dinner on, evenings. We can go to summer events. We can go to church camps and family vacations and things like that. So anything on that, spending time and off the court. And
we play on we play over spring break, right? So I usually give them that Friday before spring break off. We don't play a game. And then they don't have to be back until that next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Right.
I try to practice that Friday.
No, we don't do it like
as soon as school's over.
As soon as school's done, you're done. If your parents want you to miss school that Friday because you're going to catch a flight or whatever, be my guest. Like, go ahead and go. I'll be there. I'll leave the field open. We can go down. It's not an organized practice per se, right? So like, we kind of make that. I've been doing that for a while now. I'm just like, I want to go, get a little break in the middle of the season, right? So like they'll take that time. They have to be back Wednesday. They know we're going to practice Wednesday at 10 o'clock, and then we usually play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that weekend of spring break. So like I'm very clear and upfront with parents before that too, like during our parent meeting, like, hey, this is what day we're going to play on. After that, like, we may play that Thursday. We're not going to play that Friday. You guys are good to go. You don't have to be back until Tuesday or Wednesday at 10 o'clock. I don't care if your flight gets in at 8:30.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's still, I want you to have your spring break still. Right? Yeah. So, like, those family vacations and things like that, and we don't play high school summer baseball. Mm-hmm. So, like, we just lift Monday through Wednesday. And
if they're there.
If they happen to be out of town, then they're out of town, you know? So that is one thing that I'm grateful for, like being at a school that does take that into account, right? Because every school is not like that.
Right.
So I do enjoy that. And then spending time with them off the field, like we're getting ready to have a team get together at a family's house. And I tell our players, I'm like, hey, I want you to be there, but it's the holiday season. If you can't go because your parents have you going somewhere else, I understand.
Yeah.
Like, I understand. Don't stress about it. Don't fret about it. Like, we'll miss you, but we're still going to have it either way. I do something where they all come over to my house right before the season starts. We don't talk about baseball. We don't watch baseball. We play 3-on-3 basketball, king of the court style, because they all think they can hoop.
You show them your skills?
No. I sit in a lawn chair and watch. But we play king of the court. Like, we just hang out. We have little games around the yard. We cook, eat. And it's just a time for us just to hang out before the season starts.
Yeah.
And I think some of those times are where you build the best relationships with your players.
Yeah.
So spending time off the field and off the court is very, very important. I was working the scores table at our middle school basketball game last night. One of our players comes up, he just sits down. He's like, "What's up, coach?" And I'm like, "Yo," like, he distracted me a little bit from my duties, but like, I was still getting points down.
But
like that's what I like almost more than the coaching part is being able to build that relationship off the field with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So at the beginning of this year, I had this goal of like, hey, I'm going to meet with my guys once a week for lunch. It's like, hey, man, this is something I can do. I can just see them in their element and all that stuff. I go up to a group of them. I was like, hey, where y'all having lunch today? And they all kind of like look around awkwardly. And I was like, they were like, I don't know. One was like, I brought my lunch. I was like, yeah, but are you going somewhere to like hang out? Where are you guys going? And like, it took me like 5 minutes of asking questions. And I was like, well, never mind, man.
This is not going to work.
I'm not cool enough to hang out with these guys at lunch. Now, I think they were like really just taken back, like didn't know how to respond. But then later I was giving them a hard time about it. And they were like, no, coach, like, we'll let you know and everything. So that was just kind of funny. So last thing I want to hit on is some parents want to build strong relationships with coaches. Okay. And that can be great. But if a coach does build a relationship with you, like when I come out of a locker room, I like to go talk to parents and those type of things. But it's important that you don't cross a boundary, right? You're not talking playing time. You're not talking, well, why'd you go zone instead of man? Why'd you throw that kid instead of this kid?
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. If a coach does put themselves out there to build a relationship, it's important that the parents respect that and honor that in a way that doesn't cross a boundary. And so, hopefully those things are taking place, because as a coach, as soon as I find myself in a situation like that, now I got to pull back.
Right.
Now I got to not go out there and talk to parents. And I love talking to parents. I appreciate them and doing the things that we're doing for their kid. So anything else you got?
No, you pretty much wrapped it all up. Like the relationship piece with parents, like I talked to you earlier about that. I had a parent that I've had his kid for 4 years. Like my relationship's going to be a little different with him than it is with a freshman parent, right? He also knows the boundary line of like, I'm not going to overstep.
Yeah.
And sometimes he's like, coach, I hope I'm not overstepping. And I'm like, no, you're fine. Like, but there's also that piece of the puzzle as a parent. Like I do want to develop a relationship with the coach. And from the coach's perspective, you have to be like, is it like don't take this the wrong way. Is this parent approaching me or trying to build a relationship so their kid can, right? So like you have to be able to disseminate between that. But as a parent, like don't ever go into that situation that way. Like really, if you don't want to have a relationship with the coach, then just don't. Like that's fine. Like it's not going to hurt my feelings, right? But don't go into that like, hey, I'm going to build this relationship with coach. My boy's going to get on the court. Not going to happen.
Yeah, I tell parents, like, if your relationship with me depends on how much I play your kid, it's probably better if we don't, talk and build that relationship, because that's not why I'm building it with you.
Right.
I just enjoy talking to parents. I think we just have incredible parents in our community.
We do.
And everything. But as soon as I kind of get wind of that, they're trying to use it for that, like, that's over. I've got to protect that, for our program and everything. So what I want to finish with is, if you're a coach listening to this, ask your question. If you were a parent, what would you expect from the coaches that are coaching your kids? And what does it look like to be a parent in your program?
Yeah.
All right. Is it the walls are up everywhere and all that, and it's very difficult to communicate with you? How do their kids feel within your program? Okay. And then as a parent, like, share with your coaches, like, hey, I appreciate when you valued my kid like this. I appreciate when you did this, when you spent this time outside of that, and give them that feedback. Because I think it's important in our coaching journeys, because I'm obviously a much different coach in year 20 than I was in year 1 and 2.
Right.
Thank the Lord. And some of that has been feedback from parents for me. So be willing to share that. So finally, like and subscribe. And then if you have any questions, comments, comment down below. And you can also email us at theathleticsoffice@gmail.com, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode.